Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. And well, playoffs have returned to Orchard Park, and we have to bring you a special Friday night edition of the Friday Night Tailgate. And Mario Granata should be joining us some point during the show, but as usual, I'm joined by the sports director of WUFO 1080, Muki Hawkins. How are you doing tonight, man?
Thank God it's Friday. You know what I mean? It's like Christmas. It's like Christmas night, and all through the house. When you wake up in the morning, it's time to see your gifts.
And a first time appearance for Drew Geir of the Rockpile Report. Drew, thank you for coming on the Tailgate Show. You've made appearances on the Cold Front Report. I've come on your podcast before. One of the best Buffalo Bills podcasts, one of the first Buffalo Bills podcasts, not to mention that's a tip of the cap to you, sir. One of the OGs of Buffalo Bills podcasting, considering there's like 50 of them now. Drew, thanks for coming on.
When
How are you doing?
no, I'm doing great. Yeah, you aren't kidding. When we started doing our podcast, there was only three. There was only three Bills podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we started ours when Rex Ryan took the job his first season. We thought this was going to be the best. We thought this was going to be the most fun ever. And I'll tell you what, that first 3 years of suffering really kind of helped us figure out how to create and how to have fun and how to enjoy yourself when really that might be all you have.
Right. And
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about Rex Ryan right now.
I don't. I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think. We have come so far since then. It's incredible. It's incredible to think about. Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean pretty much came in here and took this organization and flipped it on its head. Took a 180 ever since those two took the reins of the organization, so to say. But the team's back in the playoffs the third time in 4 years. And this time it's not a statistical anomaly. This time it's not just a promising season where, they're playoff contenders. This time around, this is a team that's an actual legitimate championship contender. And they're matched up with the last seed in the AFC playoff, the first time ever that you'll see 7 teams in the playoffs in each conference. So the Bills have a favorable matchup in this game, to say the least. And I'll go around the horn and I'll give my thoughts after you guys are done. Drew, this is the platform of hospitality. I'm going to give you the go first, and then we'll go to Muki. What are your overall thoughts entering this matchup with the Indianapolis Colts?
It's hard because I go back and forth between feelings of anxiety and feelings of just being comfortable because we've run, between our various podcasts, our preview shows, just me in my head looking over the numbers. You go back and forth between the anxiety of being a long-suffering Bills fan and knowing that this team has found ways to let you down in the past, to looking over the numbers and looking over the tape and just seeing what both of these teams are and trying to figure out. I mean, you have to do really complicated mathematics to try to figure out exactly how the Colts could find a way to beat this Bills team with the way they're playing right now. So you're torn, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. I see a lot in the comments here. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Absolutely not. Now, Mookie, this is really a favorable matchup for the Bills, in my opinion. If a lot of people were discussing amongst themselves, which team do you want to play in the first round of the playoffs? And to be quite honest with you, if it weren't the Miami Dolphins who missed, I would have wanted to face the Indianapolis Colts. What is your attitude? How are you feeling going into this matchup with the Colts?
Well, I mean, one thing I can say about the Colts that's a team that the Bills haven't, faced pretty much. It seems like the Bills have played everybody this year except the Indianapolis Colts. But, one thing I can say about, the Colts team is, for one, they have a great, head coach. They have a great offensive mind in Frank Wright. They definitely have a veteran quarterback in Phillip Rivers, who's the, OG gunslinger. And I think that Indianapolis offensively is probably the most balanced team that the Bills will face thus far. You know what I mean? As far as our offense giving you that good balance of run and pass, but we know the heart and soul of, that offense is the run game. And that's where, the anxiety kicks in because, when you look at the numbers, you got to stop looking at those numbers. Like, most of those numbers are fake numbers now. Those numbers are still accumulated of what happened the first 6 weeks of the season. We know those numbers wasn't good as far as from a defense perspective. But if you look at the Bills defense, the past 10 games, they rank top 10 in every statistical category. That's let you know there are shades of last year's team. You know what I mean? So you go off that. That's where the anxiety kicks in. When you see Jonathan Taylor running for 200 and some odd yards, we just think that he can possibly do that. Yes, he can possibly do that. But I don't think the Bills are going to allow that, seeing that and then just actually allow it to the point where they're just that superior up front. I don't think, the Indianapolis Colts is really that superior. They have a great scheme due to the fact of who the coach it is. And, it's going to be a good game for, I say, the beginning. But, it's very intriguing just on those facts alone because the Indianapolis Colts do have balance. They do have Phillip Rivers. They do have a young run game and Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor there. And then hey, you got T.Y. Hilton and Pascal and the rest of those guys. So they give you some good balance. So they're definitely a threat. So that's where I see where the nervous and the anxiety things kick in. But I tell you what, this Bills team is really locked in. They're not taking anything for granted. They know they've been here before, and they're at home. So I think they're just going to take it to another level tomorrow.
And you kind of you hit the nail on the head there at the end of your point, saying how they're rolling. This team is firing on all cylinders, not just on the offensive side of the ball, not just on the defensive side of the ball, not just at the first level of the offense or the second level or the defense. This team has been playing complete football for the last month and a half of the season. This is a team that really caught wind right at the right point of the season, ever since the Hail Mary, ever since that play happened. And, you go back and you watch these press conferences. Muki, you're in the Zoom room. You hear what these players have to say after games or during the week. Players like Micah Hyde, they reference that play and they say, you know what, I'm happy it happened. And, Jeremy Turner Montgomery references this a lot, considering he has a show with Lorenzo Alexander. And if you don't check that show out, it's pinned onto our Facebook page on Buffalo Bills Cold Front Report. You can watch
pressure
that.
Front, baby. The pressure front.
Pressure Front. It is an incredible show. A ton of insight there with former Bills linebacker Lorenzo Alexander. And Lorenzo always says there is a moment in every season for every football team that, it's your defining moment. And that was a moment that defined this Bills team, and not in the way that so many Bills fans have come accustomed to. That wasn't the moment that this team, they did not get a fair shake in that game, I think. How many teams lose on a last play Hail Mary? It doesn't happen very often. That's why it was such an incredible play. And you know what? This team took that, they went into the bye, and they made it their driving motivation. And with that being said, I want to talk about how, we all saw that video yesterday of the Bills at practice dancing and MC Hammer, getting jiggy with it, having the feet like MC Hammer, like Sean McDermott likes to say. And some Colts players took offense to that. Some Colts players feel like the Bills are slighting the Colts. And some Colts and a lot of the Colts players are embracing the underdog mentality going to this game. And it's kind of strange to me. And I understand they're 6.5-point underdogs and the Bills are favorites in this game. But I don't really feel like the Bills are truly underdogs. I feel like this is a team that, even though they're 13-3, even though they've done everything to prove themselves this season other than win a playoff game to this point, I feel like they still have that edge. They still have that giant chip on their shoulder. And a team that is firing on all cylinders like this, and a team that has proven success this year, that still has that kind of mentality of us against the world and people don't think we can do it, that's a dangerous combination, especially with the amount of talent that this Bills team has. Drew, what are your thoughts going into this game, considering the Colts really embracing that underdog mentality? And the Bills, we all know how Sean McDermott is in that locker room. He continuously preaches it, humble and hungry. And hey, this team, they rally behind that. That is really their rallying cry to drive them into these games.
Well, what I think you've found with Sean McDermott's tenure in Buffalo is that he's done a good job of cultivating the right personalities for his coaching style in the locker room. He's gotten the types of guys who he knows when you face adversity, he knows that you're not going to get too low. And he knows that when you have a big win, you're not going to get too high. There's not a next week letdown game because you had that one great game where you think everything went right. And so because of that, and because of the right, the mentalities that he's been able to cultivate in the locker room, I don't think he has any concern about it at all. As far as the Colts claiming that they're the underdogs or trying to grasp that mentality, they better. They had better, because there's a lot here. Now, Muki made a point about statistics not really mattering and how, or at least that they can be skewed in different ways. When you look at what the Colts are statistically, there's a reason that they're the biggest AFC underdog of the weekend. Okay. I mean, they're 22nd in the NFL in third down conversion percentage, compared to Buffalo being first. Okay. I mean, there's some huge disparities between Buffalo and them. On defense, their third down conversion percentage is 19th in the NFL. Buffalo isn't great at it, but we're still 13th. And Allen and Rivers are tied for 18th in the NFL in terms of bad throw percentage. So it's not like, even with all that veteran savvy, Phillip Rivers is playing at that much higher of a level or doing things that Josh Allen can't do from a mental processing standpoint. They both make the same bad throws. It's just Allen's been so much more impressive because he's more physically talented. That's it. I mean, a lot was made this week about Rivers' lack of mobility. The man has negative rushing yards for the season. He's not going to. They're an underdog in this one for a reason, and they're going to have to embrace that if they want to have any chance of not being run out of the gym by halftime.
I tend to agree with a lot of the points you made there. Mookie, how are you feeling about the underdog mentality? Because I'll give my thoughts in a second, but what do you feel about this game where, that underdog mentality of being the 7th seed? The Colts really have their backs against the wall. They don't really have a lot to lose. The Bills, on the other hand, 13-3, winning the division for the first time in 25 years. There's expectations here in Buffalo. People expect them to at least win a playoff game. What are your thoughts?
Well, me, I like to keep them on their toes in the Zoom room. So the same thing you talking about is the same thing I asked them. I had to ask Deion Dawkins. I'll wait toward the end to ask, the ambassador, what's the mindset of this team? I went on to say, I said, hey, Deion, you guys have been the underdog since you've been drafted here. Now, Indianapolis Colts, they are the underdog. Basically, what's the mindset? Let's just, cut the shit. And Deion, what's the mindset, man? We know y'all been the underdogs. These guys trying to find a reason why they're the underdog. And, you got to amp them up to fight. I get that. But guess what? The Bills been the underdogs for 3 years. So they should know what that's like. They should know what that intensity and what that demeanor and drive and fire is like, to want to go out there and prove everybody wrong. And, they've been doing that. And guess what? They're not satisfied with, what they accomplished, even though it's been something like historic. You know what I mean? But they're not satisfied with that because they realize in the Houston game that is just right there. It's just so much more. And right in front of you, you just got to, lock in a little bit more. It takes a different type of focus to win a Super Bowl, man. It takes a different type of focus. And right now, these guys are locked in like you wouldn't believe. What you see in practice of them dancing, that's something they've been doing since day one. So if the Indianapolis Colts want to feel slighted or something like the Bills is thinking about them at practice, like, you can't touch this is on, then so be it. The Bills are really not really caring about that. They've been doing that at practice, since the season began. This is now, what they're doing and what they're accomplishing. They're just drawing the national attention on who they really are. And Coach McDermott been saying it since day one. Hey, come to Buffalo. You know what I mean? So you could be your best version of yourself. That's what you saw out there at practice. It's a loose and cold environment. Everybody comes in there, They bring their hard hat and their lunch pill and go to work. That's the McDermott way. Anything else is uncivilized. So, I think that, these guys are really locked in. They really locked in. They know what's at stake. And they playing like they got something to prove because they still had that bad taste in their mouth from last year. So they got to get over the hump. They know how to make themselves. So I tell you one thing about this team: they're a really self-motivated team, and you're going to see that once again. Tomorrow.
And you kind of touched on it there at the end. They have that Houston loss from last year's playoff game in their minds, and Josh Allen actually touched on it in one of his interviews this past week. And he mentioned it. It's not a doubt in anyone's mind that this is a team with a lot to prove, which is why it's quite peculiar to me that, you know, the Colts are considered to be the underdogs in this game. And yes, by the money line, they're the underdogs. They're 6.5 point underdogs. That's just what it is. But, you know, it's kind of going to the point that I was making before I let you guys give your opinions. This is a team that, while they are winning, they still have that underdog mentality because they still feel like they have something to prove. You know, I've listened to it all week. I listened to these national guys question Josh Allen and his abilities in the playoffs based on his one performance in Houston last year, as if he just vomited all over himself, which some people could assume he did or think that he did. But I don't think his game was exactly that awful. I mean, obviously the Bills let up a 16-0 lead or 16-3 lead, and they allowed Deshaun Watson and the Texans to come back. But that's neither here or there. You know, this is a completely different team. This is a completely different mindset. And this is a quarterback who's playing on a completely different level from last year. And, you know, to sit here and act like the Colts, you know, they do have a lot to play for. Make no mistake about it. This is a playoff game. Every day could be your last now when you walk into work. You know, they're playing for their playoff lives. And to say that the Colts, you know, they have a lot to lose, obviously. They have their seasons on the line, but as do the Bills. And, you know, that playoff loss last year, it still sticks in that it still lingers in that locker room, I feel like. And it still sticks with these players. And that's definitely on their minds leading up to this game. And while you see them dancing at practice, you know, wasn't it a couple of weeks ago Terry Pagula filmed a snowball fight at practice? I didn't see anybody from New England Patriots taking that and saying, you know, this, that, and the third, and or their linebackers liking the tweet or what have you. You know, this is a team that is winning and they're having fun, and they should have fun. People want, you know, I see a bunch of guys that are loving playing football. They love their job. They love where they're playing. They love who they're playing for. They love who they're playing with. This is a team that, you know, they genuinely love each other. They genuinely love what they do. And that is something that not only every professional athlete strives to find in their careers, it's also what every person really tries to find in their careers and their own professional lives. You know, nobody wants to go to work and, you know, not look forward to going to work. You know, really the only thing you can compare what the Bills have built is the dynasty to the New England Patriots. Now, I'm not putting it on par to what Bill Belichick did with the 6 Super Bowl rings and what have you with Tom Brady. But the aura around the stadium, the aura around the organization when you come into work is obviously a lot different. Where you come to work in New England, you're coming to work and it's strict and it's you can't really be yourself. You're not really free to have that personality on the field and dance to MC Hammer and have snowball fights. You know, you're going to get scowled by old man Bill if you do that. Whereas in Buffalo, it's all the above. You can come to work, you can have fun, and you can go out there on Sunday and beat the team you're facing across from you. So I really feel like that the Bills right now, you're looking at a mix of it's really rare to find this in football. A team that played as well as they did on the back half of the season, that's having as much fun as they are, that's executing as well as they are, that's in sync as much as they are. You know, it's really hard to replicate. It's incredibly hard to replicate. I have a really hard time striking parallels to things that I've seen in the past. You know, you can strike teams and say, oh, well, teams go undefeated. Teams, you know, they have solid second halves of the year. But I feel like it's really different what they've built here in Buffalo and what they've done with this team and how much chemistry they have from top to bottom. But with that being said, well, there's a matchup we have to get into. And this is an interesting matchup. And I wanted to start with the Colts offense going up against the Bills defense. And, you know, I had my opinions on Phillip Rivers. Muki, how do you feel about the 17-year veteran?
I like Phillip Rivers. You know what I mean? You know, he got the moxie. You know what I mean? He definitely has the arm. He don't have the mobility. It's just that, you know, what plagued him, I guess, coming out of college, it still haunts him 17 years later, you know? But you know, he's a gambler. You know, I mean, he's going to look at that picture right there. Arm is dropped. You know, he still has bad mechanics. You know, so how do you think you're going to throw the ball with your arms dropped like that? But you know, he's a savvy veteran. You know, I mean, none to say the least. I mean, he's in the right area. Frank Wright. You know, Frank Wright started in San Diego when he was there first. So. You know, that's where the rapport came from. And, you know, that's where you see him a little bit more now as a game manager. You know, at this end of his career, you know, he's pretty much more or less a game manager. That's why you see them leaning a little bit more with their running backs, Naeem Hines and Jonathan Taylor. So, just going into this matchup, the Bills are definitely going to have to. It's one in the trenches. The game is definitely one up front. So, make no mistake about it. DeForest Buckner and Justin Houston versus John Feliciano and Deion Dawkins. You know what I mean? Those are your battles up front. Quentin Nelson versus Ed Oliver in that rotation that the Bills have on the interior. So, it's going to be some real intriguing matchups in the trenches, but make no mistake about it. The Bills' offensive line, no matter who's out there, only given up 4 sacks in the past 5 games. So they've been keeping Josh Allen clean. So all that talk, every time everybody want to talk about DeForest Buckner and the pressures and, just laud these defensive linemen, the Bills have faced the best defensive fronts in the NFL on a week-to-week. And yeah, Josh probably got sacked 7 times. And guess what? They still won the game. So pressure, ain't gonna bust no pipes tomorrow. Not in one Bills drive, that's for sure. So, that's like, Drew was saying with the anxiety part. We start thinking about what the Colts are really good at, and then start second guessing, what the Bills do. Don't do that. That's true. That's self anxiety right there. That's double whammy. You don't want to do that.
You're working yourself up, folks. I see it so often. But Drew, what
Wait,
are
me getting worked up? Me getting worked up about things? No, that doesn't happen. Me get worked up? No.
Oh, Drew, what are your thoughts on how Phillip Rivers matches up with this Bills defense?
Well, we talked about it in this week's Rockpile report because there's 2 things I do. I drink and I research football statistics and schematics. I'm doing a little bit of both right now. One of the things that I found, and I asked our guest about it, and he said I hit the nail on the head, is that there are some, if you break down the advanced analytics, the next-gen stats, you take a look at the passing charts, there are some startling similarities between Ben Roethlisberger, who you've already played this year, and Phillip Rivers. When you look at the way that they both orchestrate their offense, you're talking about 2 quarterbacks who, they're both, he's 6th in the NFL in time to throw, but 24th in completed air yards per pass at 3.6, which means he gets the ball out quickly, but only throws it a few yards at a time. Essentially, you're going to have to play him the way you played Ben Roethlisberger. And if Bills fans think back to the way we played him in that game, it resulted in a pick 6 because our DBs knew to squat on the short routes anytime pressure got close to him because they knew that's Ben's MO. He's not going to take contact. He's going to look for the quickest dump off he can. And we knew how to hang on to that and we squatted all over him for 3 quarters. So with that in mind, you're going to play them in a lot of the same ways. And I also think that they're in a worse spot, being the Colts, because they don't have as many dynamic talents on offense as Pittsburgh does. They don't have a Chase Claypool. They've got a Michael Pittman Jr., who he's physical, but he's not nearly what Chase Claypool is. They have a T.Y. Hilton, but T.Y. Hilton, who's 30 years old. This isn't 26-year-old like leading the league in touchdowns outside of 20 yards. T.Y. Hilton. So this offense is going to be a lot of what we saw Pittsburgh play. And I think that we can all agree they handled that pretty well. Now, everyone's scared of Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is the straw that's going to stir the drink for them tomorrow. But that's where I think the matchup here is, and it's our front 7 against the middle of their offensive line. Over the last 3 games, he's had, 9 and 6, 15 rushes of 5 or more yards, and 4 touchdowns when rushing between the tackles. But outside the tackles, he can kind of get penned in, especially against teams that have good linebacker speed, which they haven't played in the last month a linebacker tandem like Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, or safeties like we've got safeties. So with that, Taylor does a lot of nice things. I'm sure he's going to have a good game. If you made me a betting man, I'd say he's going to have over 100 yards rushing. But it's as long as you don't let him gut you up the middle of the field and get behind your linebackers, and you keep making him stretch it out to the sides, not to the sides. Remember, their tackle situation is really not good. Their starter went down. Their backup missed last week's game and was injured all week long. He may not even play. You're talking about them starting backups on the edges. I don't expect them to do a lot of great run blocking in that fashion against this defense. if they're going to make hay on the ground, it's going to be our D tackles and our linebackers handling their business in the middle of the field. And I think these guys, am I right or am I wrong there, Clayton? They've been playing some of their best football all season over the last few weeks.
Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds?
Yeah, the two of them together have. It's early on. You saw some miscues from Edmonds. I know he was in the doghouse with a lot of fans. I know that Milano was hurt, and you saw our defense didn't look the same. But when they were both healthy and they're in, and now our D tackles are starting to roll. Boy, no one's been able to put up chunk yardage on the ground against us.
Right. And that's all I'm saying, Drew.
And
those are fake numbers. When you look at one thing I can say about, just going back real quick to the Arizona game, what really pissed them off, Clay, it was a game they lost that they control. Coach McDermott talk about control, which you can control all the time. That was a game where it was a game they controlled. They lost that game, and they had a bye week to think about it. So basically, you had 2 weeks to get over that thing, and that just really pissed them off. And they just been on a tear ever since then. But in hindsight, it's just that at the end of the day, I don't think the Indianapolis Colts will have enough juice to prove the Bills wrong tomorrow. You look at the linebacker core, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds. First and foremost, Tremaine Edmonds got hurt week 1. The Bills was doing all types of aggressive things in that game until that happened. And everything just, down spiraled a little bit with the defense because, they did have continuity issues, up front when you got brand new guys that's familiar, but don't have that game continuity out there on the field with each other. So the trust isn't there. There's no discipline with the eyes or gap integrity. And you see that, it's totally changed to where the point where you are seeing pressure with just 4 guys. And you might see Matt Milano crashing that A-gap from time to time, or you might see a twist come from Tremaine Edmonds. But Matt Milano is covering everybody's third down back, if you will. So that's going to be a matchup to watch out for him and Nyheim Hines. See where that matchup lies tomorrow. And, I think the Bills will have, if we playing chess, the Bills just have way too many pieces for the Colts to withstand. I firmly believe that. Don't get it twisted. The Colts do have some players, that can make plays. But at the end of the day, the Bills have too many playmakers on defense. The Bills have way too many playmakers on offense. And I just if the Bills just could completely just lay a damn egg at home, which I don't think that's going to happen, it could be a close game. I say, Bills could probably still, if it's a close game, the Bills will still win by, a touchdown, I believe.
And see, the thing that both of you had in common was I initially asked you about Phillip Rivers, and then you changed the discussion to another point and another point of emphasis of what concerns you in this game. So everybody on your screen, I think, can kind of agree. We're not really worried about Phillip Rivers beating the Buffalo Bills tomorrow.
Right.
And I think at this stage of his career, and let's be honest, Phillip Rivers, they had some damn good teams there in Los Angeles / San Diego. They had some really, really good teams there during his career. And I think the fact is that if Phillip Rivers weren't Phillip Rivers, that team would have had a Super Bowl. If they had a quarterback that wasn't Phillip Rivers, that team probably would have won a Super Bowl within the last 17 years. I think that's more than fair to say. There was a hell of a lot of talent there for a long time. So
we let Drew Brees go.
am I really worried about Phillip Rivers right now in year 17 in the first week of the playoffs when he is the definition of a choke artist? He is a career choke artist. And no, I'm not worried about Phillip Rivers tearing up this team. And I think that's all any of us have to say about Phillip Rivers in this passing offense. Because guess what? The moment this Bills team forces that team into throwing the ball downfield and trying to stretch them vertically and take chances, that's the moment where the Bills are starting to control the game. That's the moment where the Bills are starting to dictate what on the offensive side of the ball. And that's really the key, is once you get them out of running the ball with Jonathan Taylor, which we all agree is the biggest factor for the Bills defense. Once they get out of that, once the Bills force them to stop running the ball, that's where the Bills will start rolling. That's where you'll see them start to force turnovers. You'll see them start to play aggressive, and that really is once that starts to happen, that's when the Bills start to take control. And I think it's all free sailing from there.
I think the biggest thing that underscores where the division between where the Buffalo Bills are and their team development and where the Colts are is that third down conversion percentage rate. And here's why. You're already a team that, if you look at the quarterback numbers, he doesn't throw the ball downfield very often. When you look at his passing charts, he doesn't throw it down the field very often. He likes to dink and dunk, do a lot of play action stuff because you have to respect that rushing attack. Well, what that shows is that if you can get this team in third and long, they, outside of T.Y. Hilton, don't have a lot of dynamic weapons that can go down the field, which is why their conversion rate is so low. Meanwhile, you look at the Buffalo Bills on offense. I see Stefan Frisch in the comments. He says, if Diggs is out, it's us losing our queen. I'm thinking to myself, they don't have a queen. They've got a bishop in T.Y. Hilton, and they don't really have much else. So if you get them in third and long, they're probably coming off the field because they don't have a lot of dynamic targets to throw to. Whereas you're watching a Buffalo Bills team go out there, and on 1st and 10, they're picking up 14 by throwing to Diggs. They've got Beasley picking up 12 on first down, or on second 8, you got Beasley picking up 9. That's the type of offense we have. And by almost on the flip side of the coin, you've got this offense for the Colts that has to plod its way through games. Now, you brought up the point of how to neutralize this offense. It is simple. It's as simple as you laid it out. You get ahead of them. You take away their ability to lean on that play action. I mean, so here's a number I'm going to throw at you. The Buffalo Bills over the last 4 games. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They have 12 drives that led to scores that were less than 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The Colts have 5. They have 5. Their quick strike offense doesn't exist. They have to plod their way through their games. If you get up by a couple scores on this team, it's going to be very hard for them to orchestrate any kind of dynamic offense. They're a ball control, grind the clock type offense. So I just don't see how that bodes well for them as long as our defense can do their job and our offense can execute early.
I tend to agree with you. And, this rushing offense with Jonathan Taylor was probably, if he wasn't just my favorite running back, he was probably my favorite player in this past draft class. That was the player that I wanted the Bills to get, a dynamic runner with the football, good in between and outside the tackles. Obviously, we've seen, you kind of saw it to start the year, and that's really why he's come on here since week 11, really. He's been pretty much second in all rushing statistical categories, just behind Derrick Henry since week 11. But his early on struggles, some people kind of contemplated whether it was an injury or I believe it was really just kind of an adjustment for Jonathan Taylor, knowing how to hit the hole, where to hit the hole, because the holes for running backs are tighter in the NFL than they are in college, and certainly tighter than they're going to be in Wisconsin. So Jonathan Taylor, he's really come into his own. He's become the player that I really anticipated him to be in the professional level. And he's a player that, people might have to consider this because Phillip Rivers has completed 53% of his passes to tight ends and running backs this year. And, it's more than fair to say that Jonathan Taylor, the receiver, and Jonathan Taylor, the running back, is going to play a factor into this game. Muki, how do you stop Jonathan Taylor aside from just getting up on them, which I understand that has really been the Bills' best run defense over this stretch where they've gotten really hot. They've gotten up on these teams that like to run the ball. They've pretty much schematically forced them out of running the football. They have forced their hand and pretty much gotten up on these teams and forced them to use their weakness, which is their passing offense on many occasions. What do you think is the best recipe to contain Jonathan Taylor?
Well, it's just all about pressure, really. And one thing I did take from, when you just look at the Colts offense, first and foremost, they do a lot of misdirection stuff. They do a lot of motioning. And one thing you do see a lot is split zone with the tight end. And what I saw from that was that they like to do a lot of traps off the edges. And, they do that split zone thing real well. Well, where he'll bounce it, he'll go one side and then bounce it to the other side. So, and they do that off the edges. And as, At the beginning of the season, that kind of plagued the Bills. We had some issues really setting the edge. You know what I mean? When Trent Murphy was out there and things like that. But as of late, the Bills were able to fix that type of stuff. But the longest the Bills, first and foremost, they got to have eye discipline, and they got to trust their eyes and be physical at the point of attack. And just get vertical. Don't chase. Trust your eyes. Don't chase. Because you start running out of places, you run out of your gap, and that guy cut it back, and there's no one home. So at the end of the day, they have to have eye discipline, and they have to have very much gap integrity, and just be physical at the point of attack, man. Push the pocket a little bit, and just get him, off his lanes. Once we got him shuffling his feet, then that's a win for the Bills defense. So I'm expecting Ed Oliver, Harrison Phillips, Vernon Butler, and Quentin Jefferson to, be animals up front. And then, that gives Tremaine Edmonds an opportunity to play a little bit more free.
And, you kind of alluded to it at the end of your point. Drew hit the nail on the head here earlier, talking about Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano and how these guys can really fly around and make an impact on how this Colts offense could run the ball on the Bills. And I think a factor that a lot of people are forgetting is that this is going to be the first time you see a full load for Matt Milano in a game in a really long time. He is more than fresh. They let him nurse his injury to the fullest. And now you are seeing a 100% healthy Matt Milano, which is a very, very scary thing. Drew, earlier this week on the Rockpile Report, Brett Coleman referred to Matt Milano as one of the 4 or 5 best linebackers in the NFL. And joining us now is Jeremy Turner Montgomery. He's popping in. JT, I'll get you here in a sec. But Drew, Matt Milano in this game. I think Matt Milano really could be not only Tremaine Edmonds. Both these linebackers are going to make a huge difference in this game. But Matt Milano, when he is rolling, he is absolute dynamite for this defense. It is a noticeable difference when he steps onto the field, the amount of physicality that this defense really plays with, the amount of aggressiveness. Do you anticipate a big game for Matt Milano in this game?
Oh, you almost have to. I mean, this is the type of game that I think Matt Milano is built to play in, because what you're talking about is you have this quick, elusive running back, and you've got a line they've made a lot of hay by punching. I mean, they got Quentin Nelson. The man's a monster, and he's cleared a lot of holes to the second level for his running back so far this season. So what you need to have is a linebacker who can kind of do a little bit of everything for you. You need this Swiss Army knife type guy if you're going to take on an offense like this, who's content to dink and dunk, because that's what will get a linebacker, especially against an offense like this. And I think you've watched it over the last few weeks, throw a lot of the defenses they've played off, at least early, is when you don't know when they drop back, if it looks like a handoff, it could be a play action, but they're not going to air it out. What they're going to do is they're going to run a play action, and then they're going to throw it within 3 seconds. And it's going to be a dart to a wide receiver on a quick slant. It's going to be a shallow cross, or it's going to be something to the tight end. And when that happens, you as the linebacker are responsible for that player. And it gives a lot of linebackers enough pause that they won't crash the lane. And then that's what allows Taylor to get to the second level. Matt Milano has made his bread and butter is being the player who can do both at the same time. And that's what makes him, to Coleman's point, that's what makes him one of the most dynamic linebackers playing football right now, is that he can sit in coverage, and yet he reads and reacts so quickly that he can crash down in the lane, pick the correct one, and usually make some sort of disruptive play at the line of scrimmage against the run. And that's why he's so valuable to this defense. I think that even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet that he had some phenomenal game, you're going to see it. Like that New England game, all of his tackles, he had 8 tackles, but every single one of them was a solo tackle in the open field. Do you know how impressive that is? He's not a big guy. He's not one of these big bruisers. He doesn't have Tremaine Edmonds, 6'5", 255 pounds. And yet he's so fluid, and he's so good in space, and he's so smart around the line of scrimmage. I just think that this is the game where anybody who's on the fence about how important he is to the Buffalo Bills is going to see it tomorrow.
Now, JT, I know you were watching the show. I saw you active in the comments. right now we're really kind of talking about what the biggest dictation will be in stopping the Jonathan Taylor and that Colts running game. Because, to be quite frank, that's really all this team has that threatens me, that threatens either any of these individuals, Muki or Drew. What do you think will be the biggest factor in stopping the Colts rushing attack and Jonathan Taylor?
Honestly, I think it's the offense. I think it's spreading them out, getting an early lead, and forcing them to pass the ball. Because, like I said, I think we were talking about last week, when you really look at the Colts schedule, they haven't really played a team with that passes the ball as much as Buffalo or a spread. I mean, obviously they played Green Bay at home, but that was not in 40-degree weather. And as we touched on before, the Colts coming out of the dome, 40 weather, it's nice for Buffalo. It's like, okay, this is a nice game. It's nice weather. For the Colts, that's still cold. And these cornerbacks. I don't know if Rocky Sin is even playing tomorrow. Did he get clear? Okay, so he's out. So now you're putting pressure on cornerbacks who have not had pressure on them all season. And it's like, hey, okay, now you're going to go face a team that's clicking on all cylinders, you must say. But then they're also going to come out there and throw the ball against you 40, maybe even 50 times if they really want to. And it's nothing you can do. And nothing against Xavier Rhodes. But is Xavier Rhodes going to slow down Stephon Diggs? Absolutely not. I highly doubt it. So, end of the day, if you really ask me how you stop the Colts offense, get up on them to the point where they can't run.
And I tend to agree. And, with that, let's talk about this Bills offense against this Colts defense, because their strength is within their front seven. And, this is a defense that I had in fantasy, so trust me, I know all the troubles of this defense. I had to release them around midway through when they started to really not do too well. Their strength is within their front seven, and they do really struggle when teams spread them out. They do really struggle when teams try and have a really strong aerial attack, and that just so happens to be the biggest strength of not just the Bills' offense, but the entire team of the Buffalo Bills. That's really, you could argue that's why they made it to this point, is the success of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and the trio of wide receivers that they have. So this kind of plays into Buffalo's strength, and they don't really have the pressure or can manufacture the pressure to really make up for what they lack on the back end. So, Muki, what are you really anticipating when facing up against this Colts secondary, which has allowed the second most passing yards since week 11?
Well, I expect the Bills to do what they've been doing, pretty much just dictating tempo. Once the Bills the tempo, like Jeremy was saying just a minute ago, like you blow a team out of the water to the point where you're forced to pass to stay in the game, and the run game become obsolete when you down 21 to Krispy Kreme. That changes the game plan. You're forced to throw to keep up, because if you don't, Bills are not in the business of trading field goals for touchdowns, and it's amazing that I'm saying that right now. But they're not in the business of doing it. But guess what? They do have a field goal kicker who's more than able to get the job done if need be. So, they just got to dictate the tempo. You look at once again, we talking fake numbers, right? We laud about their top defense. They play this Tampa 2 shell, something that it gave Josh some problems early on, but we knew that the first 4 games teams was playing man. Then they said, you know what, we cannot play man against this kid. So what they do, they respect him enough to have 4-man pressures, 3-man pressures, try to force Josh to get frustrated and force something into a window, and here's an interception. But guess what? Even the Miami Dolphins was playing cover 2 shell, at some point in that game. Then Josh Allen surgery with a chainsaw, just picking them apart. So it doesn't matter what coverage that the Indianapolis Colts is going to present to them. He's seen every coverage this season. And, once you see Josh start pointing and, recognizing where the pressure is going to come from, and, you see they have success, it's going to be a long day, for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think they're going to be able to withstand that. And one more tidbit, when you look at them, when I say fake numbers, the Indianapolis Colts defense versus winning teams has given up an average of 35 points per game. With that being said, the Bills is the number 2 scoring offense in the NFL. And, they are ranked number 1 when it comes to third down. And on that flip side, Hey, last week they held Miami Dolphins to a 0% at halftime on third down. They finished the game with 21% as a team. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, there was what, 10% or 16% on third down. We're talking Ben Roethlisberger and Chase Claypool and Juju Schuster and all of that. So with that being said, the pass defense once again is flashing greatness of last year, and I don't think Phillip Rivers want no parts of that.
I tend to agree with you. And you really look at what this Colts defense is, and I really feel like that when Malik Hooker went out, that's really when you saw a decline in their pass defense, because beforehand they had two solid safeties, and that's why the cover two was so successful and why they were able to run it with such efficiency, was because they had Malik Hooker, and then they had Justin Blackman. Now they're just left with Justin Blackman, and Kyrie Willis will be returning this week from a concussion, but he's no Malik Hooker by any stretch of the imagination. They also will be without Rocky Sin, like we just clarified, and TJ Carey will be the cornerback too, and will likely be guarding John Brown, which I don't think he's going to have a fun day at all. Drew, you have a big smile on your face. What are your thoughts about how the Bills could spread this defense out, and really, I feel like they could throw it all over the yard?
Well, it's something that, when we talk about how I go back and forth between being anxious and being excited about this game, Stan Jones in the comments just hit the nail on the head when he talks about how Rhodes is terrible against small, fast, quick guys. Well, you know who Rhodes is terrible against? I would put it up almost anybody's true number one receiver. So Rocky Sin is going to miss this game the same way he missed last week's game against Jacksonville. So what the Colts did last week in a must-win game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's not like they weren't playing like the Buffalo Bills where, hey, we're going to pull our starters at halftime. They had to go hard in the paint and try to win that game just to get to this point. So what they got cute last week, and what they did was they said, hey, we're playing Mike Glennon. I mean, the man's a giraffe more than he is a quarterback. He looks like Napoleon Dynamite. There's no way this kid's going to air it out on us. We're going to put Xavier Rhodes and use him to shadow Chris Conley. We're going to have him. He's their number one wide receiver because DJ Chark is out. We're going to use him to follow him around the field anywhere he goes. Conley's final stat line was 7 for 87. You know who's better? Do you know who's better than Chris Conley? Stephon Diggs. So that game plan goes right out the window. You're not going to be able to shadow anybody on this offense. I don't even think you can play John Brown the way he played against Chris Conley last week, which means now you as a defensive coordinator are going to have to, every single snap that you see the Bills line up in an obvious passing situation, you're essentially playing let's make a deal, where you're trying to figure out how am I going to slow down, who am I bracket coveraging on this play, and who am I going to commit extra resources to on this play and roll the dice and hope Josh Allen doesn't burn me with the guy on the other side of the field. That's what this game is going to turn into for them over the course of the game. And that's what makes me feel better about this matchup.
And, you kind of alluded to it there with your point was, it's not necessarily just one matchup for this Colts defense. It's not just one matchup for this for the Bills offense. I would take any matchup out there for this Bills offense. I really would. Any matchup with these corners covering, whether it's John Brown against TJ Carey or Stephon Diggs against Xavier Rhodes, it doesn't really matter. And, I just thought of this really just on the fly is they might not activate Cole Beasley because they, quite frankly, don't need him in this game. They could pass for 450 yards. You might not even see their second or third best wide receiver on the team activated tomorrow. This is a game where, quite frankly, I anticipate Josh Allen to be pushing 300 yards by halftime because they're going to push the issue. They're going to try and stress out this defense, and they're going to try and push the ball downfield to their playmakers. Jeremy, you kind of really alluded to it with your first initial point. What are you expecting from this Bills offense and their variety of playmakers?
I mean, I think you spread them out. I mean, if you really want to go back to a matchup that I like to bring up from the past is when the Patriots, and Brian Dable was on that Patriots staff when they used to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers like to stay in a base defense of linebackers on the field. So what did New England do back in the day? You know what? We're not even going to run the ball. We're going to come out in 5 rides, four receiver, one running back sets all game. And we're going to spread you out. And if you're going to be you don't want to come out as that base, we're going to crush you. And that's what New England did over and over again to Pittsburgh. And I think this game is set up the exact way. The Colts have not come out of that base defense they've run pretty much all season. They have not made adjustments. They have not changed anything about their defense. And guess what? When you really look at their schedule this year, and when I talk about dynamic quarterbacks, they struggled against every single one. And that's mean twice against Deshaun Watson. They came out with 2 W's against Deshaun Watson and a bad Texan team. But Deshaun Watson had 371 and 323. They played against Lamar Jackson. They took an L. They played against Ryan Tannehill, who I consider kind of in that dynamic quarterback phase just because his legs can be used as a weapon. Obviously not as dynamic as those other guys and Josh Allen. But guess what? They took a bad L. This defense it's a very bad defense. They just had a really easy schedule this year, and they took advantage of those games that they were supposed to win.
And I tend to agree with everything you said. Drew,
I was going to say, I want to jump in here for a second. You want to talk about a bad defense? So here's what they're going to do. They're going to start Kenny Moore in the slot. And I know people, I'm looking at the comments, there's hand wringing going on, or at least there was, about whether Beasley plays or who's going to step up if Duke Williams is going to get in. You have a guy named Gabe Davis. He's 6'4", 200, and I think 25 pounds. He's a pretty big guy, and he's played on the outside, but when John Brown's on the field and Diggs are on the field, he operates from kind of the slot, or at least in a 4-wide set, he'll break out towards the hash. This might be to your point, when you said that maybe they don't activate Beasley because they don't think they need him. You're going to put him up against, if you're operating with him from the slot, against Kenny Moore, who's 5'9", 190 pounds. And when you look at what he's done this year, quarterbacks are averaging a 97.2% rating when they throw at him. He's given up 5 touchdowns and 8.4 yards per target, which means if you can get off the line of scrimmage against that guy, because there's no way he can jam Gabe Davis. He's a mismatch for those linebackers. He's certainly a mismatch for that cornerback. I think that this is a game you almost don't need a Cole Beasley, because you have a Gabe Davis who, based on what they have at slot and at linebacker, this kid gives you a mismatch. And that right there is something that you could see pay dividends for them tomorrow.
Right. And, Muki, I'm sorry. Hold on a second.
I mean, nobody knows what's going on with Kenny Stills. I know he just got there, you know what I mean? But maybe he suits up. You know, they haven't been talking about him. You know, they haven't been giving any press. I don't think that you bring a guy on. I mean, the confidence is there to say, hey, we'll start the guy next week, but maybe what if not? You know what I mean? Why we got this guy, we might as well play him. You know, we brought him in just in case Beasley can't go. You activated Duke Williams, so that's, you know, letting you know something is up to some degree, but, you know, just going to have to wait and see who's really inactive. But to, you know, at that point, spread them out, make Darius Leonard cover, you know what I mean? So that keeps him at bay from pretty much rushing the passer because, you know, he's really the glue that makes them stick. I will make him cover them.
And, you know, we keep referencing the pressure, and I think that is ultimately going to be the key for that Colts defense is if they can pressure Josh Allen and specifically along the interior with DeForest Buckner. And that's where I think really the biggest matchup up front for this Bills defense. You know, they have a nice edge rusher in Justin Houston, but he's still a solid player, but he's not quite what he once was. And he's going to be facing 2 pretty solid bookend tackles in Darrell Williams and Deion Dawkins. And I think the Bills have the upper hand in either of those matchups. But like I said, the biggest matchup I'm watching is DeForest Buckner facing up with the interior of the Bills offensive line with Ike Bacher, with Mitch Morse. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because if they do facilitate any kind of pressure on Josh Allen, I believe that's where it's going to come from. And DeForest Buckner, make no mistake about it, this is a guy who got snubbed from the Pro Bowl. He's a guy who he had impressive numbers this year, 9.5 sacks, 25 quarterback hits, which is an Indianapolis Colts record. You know, all things considered, considering they had players like Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney over there, that is quite impressive considering, you know, just the bookend edge rushers that they've had. So with that being said, that is really the matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing, is if the Bills can contain the interior rush from DeForest Buckner. And Jeremy, I'm coming to you. Do you really are you concerned with the pressure that the Colts could possibly force? This is a team that doesn't really like to send pressure. If they were sending pressure, they blitz. They're towards the bottom of the league in blitz percentage. So if they do start to send extra guys, they're out of their comfort zone, and I think that puts a lot of stress on the back end, especially facing a big arm quarterback like Josh Allen.
No, I don't think that I'm not. I don't feel any pressure from them. Like I said, it's about pulling them out of their comfort zone. And if you do that, that's going to give Buffalo the upper hand. Now, mind you, you did mention DeForest Buckner's 9.5, 9 sacks. You said was it 9.5 or 9?
9.5.
Mind you, he got 3 versus the Texans in one game. Okay, so some of these stats are skewed, kind of like Jordan Phillips' stats were skewed last year. Just throwing it out there. I don't see these guys chasing Josh Allen. And the thing is, what are you going to do? My question is, what are you going to do with Darius Leonard? Because we've seen in some games, Darius Leonard can be a menace in the passing game. But now, are you going to use Darius Leonard to spy Josh Allen, or are you going to use him in the middle of the passing game? You have to make a choice there. Because if not, then guess what? Allen's going to gas you on third downs. Allen's going to gas you on second downs for 7, 8, 9, maybe even 12 yards. Then what do? That's going to change field position. That's going to give Buffalo easy first downs. And no, I don't see anybody on this defense as being dynamic enough to even stop him or catch him. And like I said, nothing against Justin Houston. He's been a great pass rusher in this league for a long time. But this is not the Justin Houston of, and I can't even name the other guy, which means I'm not worried about him.
You really shouldn't be, because Autry he's much more so of a run defender. That's where he really makes his hay, is defending the run. And, when I see this Colts defensive line, I see 3 big bodies in Justin Houston. And when I see 3 big bodies in a finesse edge rusher, that matches the Bills match up incredibly well with that, because I see pretty much what the 49ers had, and it's kind of the same thing. You have a majority of big bodies, then you have one finesse rusher. Look at what the Steelers have. You have Casey Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, and then I forget the other guy's name is failing to come to me, but Tyson Alualu, and then you have TJ Watt. And we've seen how the Bills handle defensive lines of that variety. So with that being said, am I concerned of what that team can really facilitate on that side of the ball, sending extra guys or not? Not really. Mookie, how are you feeling?
You're valid. It's just that, why do we have to worry about these teams? They need to worry about us the other way around. Listen. The Bills are 13-3. The Bills are the number 2 seed in the AFC. It's not a fluke. All right, so let's get over that mystique right now. Is that team deep down happy to be in the playoffs, but they don't. It's a tough out. They know they have to amp themselves up. For this fight. They know they don't really stand a chance too much, other than, hey, they put their helmets and buckle their chin straps up the same way we do, type of mentality. Other than that, trying to figure out, are they dancing because they just, whatever, find something else. You barking up the wrong tree. And I just think that the team is relaxed. They confident, and, they not taking anything for granted. They're definitely not sleeping on the Indianapolis Colts. I think they're going to make them one-dimensional and shut down the run game, force Phillip Rivers to pass the ball, and, send the pressure. And we all know that Phillip Rivers do not like pressure, especially when it's cold outside, So, I don't think – I'll tell you what, it depends on the field position. Everybody, let's not forget how special teams can play an important role in this game. But if Andre Roberts, they get the opening kick and Andre Roberts, get a good return, then guess what? It's going to be a long day, because you didn't get the Bills a short field. We already in field goal range, being at midfield. So, we already halfway there. Then our offense is capable of putting together 20 or 30 yards to ensure us a field goal at least. But, it's just that I don't think – I think the Bills have a lot to prove, and they're going to put that on display. They're going to come out playing like the underdog, but guess what? They're going to be charged up. They're going to be confident. They're going to have answers to all the questions that the coach, is going to present to them. And, I'm telling you now, if they jump out on these dudes, man, it's going to be just like the Miami game. Worse.
I tend to agree. Drew, how are you feeling of how really the Indianapolis Colts could try and facilitate pressure and try and really dictate the game plan for the Bills? Because I really feel like that's their only true opportunity of trying to stop this Bills offense.
They're going to have to get creative. Danico Autry isn't. Robert Teray, he's not. And there's a reason that JT doesn't know their names because they don't matter that much. They're not game-changing talents. They're okay. This whole pass rush is built around that man right there, DeForest Buckner. He is the straw that stirs the drink. And if you have to look at what this Bills offensive line is. People have complained all season long that the Bills have not been rushing the ball effectively, which I understand that's a valid criticism of a football team. We haven't been able to do it. But when you look at the makeup of our offensive line this year, even with all there was all the early shuffling going on. I don't think we played with the same starting five for the first 5 weeks. And then finally mid-season, we landed on a rotation. But the running game didn't get better, and fans kept complaining about it. Well, the reason the team steered the direction that they did is because they realized this is our best pass protecting five, and pass protection is how we're going to win football games. Because when Josh Allen's dealing from the pocket, I think he leads all quarterbacks in touchdowns from a clean pocket. Our offensive line has been able to deliver that for him. So when you're talking about DeForest Buckner, and that's a huge matchup there, but there's nobody else who can stress the edges. There's nobody out there who can threaten our defensive tackles in one-on-one situations. There's nobody who really threatens the interior of the line besides DeForest Buckner. So I think we're in good shape in that front, and I think they're going to have to get creative. You're going to see if they get behind the sticks and they realize pressure is the way to derail this Bills offense, you're going to have to incorporate Darius Leonard. You're going to have to start bringing extra cornerbacks. But against a team like Buffalo, with the quick strike ability we have and the open field running that our guys have, I don't know how likely they'd be to pull him out of that. If they decide to be conservative and let Leonard still play the pass, and their defensive line can't get the push that they're looking for, it's going to be death by a million paper cuts. And then if they do commit him, that's even worse because the Bills can hit him over the top, up the seam for big gains. It's a no-win situation, I think, for the Colts. I would be shocked if they were able to put up much of a pass rush at all in this game.
As would I. And, we hit the hour mark, and this is a really fun show. It's always a really fun show doing the Saturday Night Tailgate. This time we're on Friday. But we have to have our bold predictions. And as I said earlier, this is the platform of hospitality. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Geir. What would be one of your bold predictions for this game?
The Bills are going to be trailing coming out of the first half. The Bills will be trailing at halftime, and fans will be apoplectic about it.
Come on, you just like 10 people just left the stream, dude.
Listen, follow me here. I'm going to run this back for you. What did I tell you earlier? I drink and I study football, and stats are a part of that. When you look at the Indianapolis Colts, I want to say that they're in the top 5, both in first quarters and second quarters for scoring. And then in the second half of games, they're 17th and 18th in third and fourth quarters. There's a reason for that. We talked all night about how they don't have dynamic playmakers. They've got some guys who have hands. They have some nice tight ends, but not world-beating tight ends. They've got a couple good wide receivers, but not great wide receivers. They've got a T.Y. Hilton who's he's post-30. Like, he's not prime T.Y. Hilton. So the second that Reich's scheme, they do a great job. Reich is a bright offensive coordinator. When he puts together a game plan and they come out and they execute it early, people panic because they manage to score a lot of points. And then when you watch the game play out, as soon as defensive coordinators catch on to what they're doing, that evaporates. And they don't have natural talent to get over the hump. Look at this. They lose to Pittsburgh because their team gets grossly outproduced in the second half. They were winning that game 21-3. The game to make the playoffs against a poor Jacksonville offense, they almost lost that. They ground to a halt in the second half. It was a 6-point game late in the fourth. I think there was 6 minutes left in the game, and they were only winning by 6 points. Houston isn't a great team, but both of those games were single-score games, even though they scored a bunch early. They had to kick a last-second field goal to win it the last time they played Houston. What this comes down to is they're a team that will get a hot start because Frank Reich is no slouch. Phillip Rivers is a veteran. They're going to come out with a game plan that they think can attack our weaknesses. And if we have any, they'll exploit them. And I think that what's going to happen is they're going to throw enough. I'll dial this back a bit. I said first half, first quarter, the Bills will not have the lead. It'll be a lot like Miami's game. Because now that I'm saying this, our defense is just too talented for these guys. Ultimately, they don't have the natural talent to overcome the game once the game plan gets figured out. And it's played out like that for them every game this season. And so with that in mind, I think fans need to be prepared for the fact that they're going to take an early lead at some point. But the Bills have the horses for the long haul.
Drew, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at these comments. I'm really sorry. But no, Drew, even though his opinions sometimes could be out there in some regards to in the opinion of others, he's always well-reasoned. He always has his facts to back it up. And it's always a believable point. So, yeah, I would tend to believe that, yeah, the Colts could end up leading at the end of the first quarter. Muki, what would be your bold prediction for this game?
Bold prediction for this game, I'm going to say Matt Milano is going to have a pick six in the sack. Okay. That's going to be a pretty bold prediction right there. Matt Milano, pick six in the sack.
Now, Jeremy. Oh, okay. Here we go. Jeremy, what would be your bold prediction for this matchup?
I think that my bold prediction for this matchup is going to be I think we're going to get 2 touchdowns out of tight ends. One way or another. I think it's going to be 2 touchdowns out of tight ends this week. I think that's going to be the sleeper position that the Colts don't focus on as much, and I think it may be the silent killer for this game. I'm going to go with that bold prediction. 2 touchdowns from the tight ends. And as Drew pointed about the Colts second half, if you want to go back to that Ravens game as well, that's another one that they blew in the second half. The Ravens scored 17 unanswered points to win that game.
And solid. Two touchdowns for tight ends. And let's look at Jerry Hughes. Jerry Hughes is going to be lining up against Braden Smith, which in his own right, he's a pretty good right tackle. He's fairly good. But Jerry Hughes, ever since he moved to the left side of the defense, he's really been a different player. He's been a different force. He's been consistent. He's been getting after the quarterback. And against a quarterback like Phillip Rivers, who's really a statue in the pocket, I don't think Jerry Hughes is going to have that hard of a day. I think he is going to fly past Braden Smith, and I think he's going to have at least 1.5 sacks in this game. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with for that Bills defense. And Phillip Rivers is going to feel uncomfortable. He's going to end up forcing an interception. And that's what happens when he gets pressured. So I anticipate that pressure to come from the left defensive end spot and Bills veteran Jerry Hughes. And with that being said, do you guys want to go, Drew? Do you have another one?
If I could say one thing, because I'll tell you what, your fans are hilarious. I like it. Here's what I'll say. Over here at the Rockpile Report, we have a way of doing things. If people think that what you said is wild and unconventional, that they don't believe it, they don't think that you know what you're talking about. We do what we call Seagram's bets. We bet a Seagram's. Anybody on here who thinks that I'm willing to stand by what I said, I think the Bills will be trailing coming out of the first quarter. Anybody who doesn't believe me, at Rockpile Report on Twitter, come get in line. I'll take you all on a Seagram's escapes to the loser.
Yeah. Starting fights,
throwing down the gauntlet.
Well, we got a dog. I mean, we got a dog. Some guy named Vicken Bastian, Dolphins fan, is just talking crap in the chat. I don't even know what the hell this guy even come from. He's talking about you
I see Tampa.
I don't even know what the hell this guy's talking about. He's talking about we beat him when they weren't healthy. We beat you twice with your non-defense reading quarterback. Get out of here. Go fishing. Go swimming, fishy. Get out of here, man. Get the hell out of here, man.
Go scout the draft or something, dude. It's that time of the year for you folks.
Yeah, take your third pick and go the hell on.
But, Muki, how are you feeling? Do you have another bold prediction? Do we want to do 2, or are we all settled with 1? Because I know I have another one. I'm feeling pretty confident about this matchup. And I think the next one, I think it's going to push the envelope a little more than Jerry Hughes sacks. Do you have a second bold prediction for us?
I mean, I'm just really to let this game get started. You know what I mean? I'm ready to get this thing started, man. I mean, I see that Drew's anxiety has gone away. You know what I mean? And that's good. I'm happy. You know that his anxiety is gone, and you know he's settled down now. But I don't think that. Drew, we might have to do the singles thing or whatever the case may be, because if the Bills come out and dictate tempo, it's going to be tough for the Colts to withstand that. Like, if their offense come right out and score a touchdown, they're going to keep scoring touchdowns. They're not going to, have any type of drop off, And I don't. And one thing I can say about Coach Dable, he's been able to adjust in game. You know what I mean? At first, he wasn't adjusting to things. They really wasn't setting up things. But now, as you see, as the season has progressed, you see the evolution of Coach Dable and how he's able to adjust on the fly and, put a little more wrinkles, if you will, to his repertoire as far as using all his weapons. And I think he's done a phenomenal job, especially in the second half of the season. I mean, they're averaging 35 points. Like, it's some ridiculous stuff. The last 4 games, 42 points a game. That's insane for a Buffalo Bills. I mean, that they produce more points than the damn K gun. And we sitting up here trying to figure out what the hell the Colts can do to stop that. There's nothing you could do to stop that. At the end of the day, imagine the K gun with a mobile quarterback. At the end of the day, Josh Allen's going to kill you with his legs. He's not going to force nothing. He's just going to run the football, something that he hasn't been doing. So, yeah, with that being said, Clay, I got another bold prediction for you. How about Josh Allen might be throwing for 300 yards and rush for 100 yards, too?
Whoa, Muki. Okay, all right. I like the sounds of that. I really do. That proved a lot of people wrong about Josh Allen in the playoffs, because for some reason they think that because he played one bad game, that's going to dictate the rest of his career in the postseason. What about Lamar Jackson? That's just Drew. You set the world afire in this comment section with your first bold prediction. I want you to do it again. What would be your second bold prediction?
Well, what I love is that people don't understand Seagram's bets. I mean, Seagram's wine cooler. Look at when I started making bets on sports with my buddies, here's what it went into. I don't want your money, because money's easy. I want shame. And you know what's? I don't think there's anything more shameful than having to stand in front of your buddies, choke down one of those diabetes-inducing like pink cocktails. It's hilarious to me, and it just took off, and it became a thing it became a staple of what we do. It sounds dumb. I get it. You want another bold prediction? I mean, I think this is going to be one of those games where you see multiple players. I'm going to say at least one interception by each level of our defense. I mean, when we talked about it earlier, this offense is painfully like the Steelers offense, except it has fewer playmakers than the Steelers offense has, as evidenced by the points they score, the records. So when you're looking at what our defense proved they're capable of doing against that team, of kind of a dink and dunk, quick short area passing team, and how we squatted on that and turned one into a pick six from the slot, I'm picturing our linebackers are probably going to get one. I'm picturing he's going to eventually start throwing deep. Our safeties are able to get one. Levi Wallace got a pick on Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know how he can. If he can get one on Ben, I'm sure he can get one on Phillip Rivers once he's desperate and the score's been run up. I think each level of our defense has an interception.
Okay, I like the sounds of that, and it's fairly realistic considering you're playing Noodle Arm Rivers over there. Jeremy, another bold prediction, or you go where you're at?
I got one more. Ed Oliver, 2 sacks and a forced fumble. I think one of the things when you watch Phillip Rivers on tape is one thing that's not undeniable is that he has a veteran pocket presence. He's only been sacked, I think, 18 times this season, which you would think in this type of league for a guy who can't move or run, he would be sacked more, but he's very mobile. He knows how to slide up in a pocket. I think that what's going to happen is Ed Oliver is going to have a day going against their center. I think Ed Oliver is going to be somewhat unleashed in this game. So I'm going to go Ed Oliver, 2 sacks and a forced fumble.
At that, I think that come to the pleasure of a lot of people, considering Ed Oliver, he really was playing out of position a lot this year, and I think he got a bad rap with a lot of fans given his lack of production. But My last bold prediction, this is going to be Old Man Rivers' last playoff game. It really will be. His sad, miserable career will come to a sad, miserable end. I don't think this is going to be a close game. I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to look good. And I do think the Bills are going to roll this team. And with that being said, let's get to our predictions. Mr. Geir, I want to hear your score prediction for this playoff matchup.
A score prediction. I'm still over here laughing at James Franey talking about who I sound like at Westwood One. Please, if I worked at Westwood One, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't have a box. I wouldn't be sitting here in a basement with Josh's Jacks hanging out behind me. Score prediction. This game has all the makings of one that would start slow, heat up, and we just pull away from them. When you look at their scores over the last over the last month, 56, 38, 48, 26, 34, 27. I mean, the Bills of last year are gone. This 18, 19, 17-point games, you don't even see those anymore. So with that in mind, I feel like you have to put our point total somewhere in the 30s. In the 30s. I mean, if you gave the average over our last couple. And with the Colts, I mean, they just don't have enough weapons. And when things get one-sided, our defense is going to lock down. I think this is one of those games you go, what, 24? I think we'll kick a few field goals late. 31, 34 to, we'll call it 34 to 21.
Okay. It's pretty close to what I'm going to say. Muki, how are you feeling?
Once again, I think the Bills are going to come out and dictate tempo. They're going to probably start off 10 personnel and, just go ahead and get the damn game over with and start off empty. Go ahead and empty out the clip real quick and early and, see where they are. Just check their temperature. Don't even play around with them. All right. There is some depletions in that secondary. They not really that good, an account of Xavier Rose and a few other guys. So check the temperature early. Know what you're dealing with. Get out there in that empty and basically do what you've been doing all season. That don't stop just because you're playing the Indianapolis Colts. So go out there, dictate tempo, be aggressive, be ultra aggressive in all phases of the game. And, I say that, okay, yeah, the Colts are going to, score points early. To Drew's point, they're going to score points early. But, the Bills have been doing a good job of adjusting in-game. And, I'm quite sure that, Coach Frazier and Coach Dable is ready to make those adjustments and, and really exploit the Colts' limitations. So with that being said, the Bills is going to jump out and they're going to win 33-24. They're going to score a few points late, just to make that look respectable. But I think the Bills is going to pretty much control the game from beginning to end.
Jeremy?
I guess I'm going to go with I just agree with Muki there. I think they're going to come off fast. I think they're going to I don't think they're going to play around in this game. I think they're fired up. I think they're ready to go. I don't even think Buffalo even gets off to a slow start. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if the Colts score points early. I see the Colts scoring more points late, more lines of third quarter and fourth quarter than anything. So I guess if I had to choose a score, I guess I'm going to go Buffalo 38-14. I think Phillip Rivers' career ends much like Dan Marino's ended. See you later, Dolphins fans. No pun intended, Vicken.
I tend to agree with all of you guys. I have the same exact confidence that all of you do. I don't think this is going to be close. And when I say this score, it's not. It's going to be much more lopsided than it may seem. I have the Bills winning this one. I'm going to stick with the score I said this morning on the Overtime podcast. Bills are going to win this one 37-24. I think Old Man Rivers puts up a couple garbage time touchdowns. I don't think this is going to be close. Like Muki said, I think they control this game from start to finish. One thing I do anticipate, much like Drew said, they do have pretty solid scripted drives. So I would anticipate an opening drive touchdown for this team, and that'll be just about it. But with that being said, this has been a solid show. Wow, a lot of people tuned into that. A lot of people tuned in tonight, and a lot of people had a lot of fun. This comment section is blowing. It's blowing up. It's been a fun evening. And with that being said, Muki, it's always fun whenever we have these tailgate shows. Tell people where they can find you, what they have to look forward to when they do. And yeah.
Well, they can always find me, at the tailgate near you, with the Cold Front Report. We had to do it exclusive today on Friday night because the Bills are playing Saturday. Normally, we be locked and loaded every Saturday with beat reporters from everywhere, from, your favorite rival team, definitely Bills beat on deck right here. But you can check me every Sunday, Waffle Sports Report at Power 96.5 FM. And you can check me tomorrow, man. We doing a pregame special tomorrow at 12:30 to 1 o'clock. Give you some more insight before the game tip off. So you can check me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Waffle Sports 1080.
Drew, I want to thank you for giving us your time tonight. You always provide a ton of insight. Your podcast is still on must listen. I don't listen to a lot of Bills podcasts anymore. I don't have a lot of friends in this podcasting stuff. And Drew Geir, I'm proud to say Drew Geir is one of them. Because Drew, he's always insightful. He's always knowledgeable. He's always prepared. He always has his laptop and his iPad in front of him. And he'll find his stats that he needs to make his point. And he'll always be on point. Drew, where can the people find you? Where can they find your podcast? What do they have to look forward to?
Well, you also forgot to mention I always have a drink in my hand. You can find us on Twitter at Rockpile Report. You can find our podcast on all of your major podcatching apps. We release 2 shows a week. We do our standard Bills show that's kind of a game recaps, game previews, things of that nature, breaking news. And then we have another show that we air that's a roundup of everything going on around the AFC East. And we bring in podcasters and writers and bloggers and things from all over the division to kind of get a feel for what's going on around us. This year we did our first full season of it, and it was obviously the best time to start something like that since we got to talk a lot of smack this year. We have fun. I think our brand is the pettiest Bills podcast. I think we say some wild stuff. We drink a bit. We have some fun. Go check it out if you're bored.
And pettiest podcast they are. And I met both Chris and Drew in person. They're just the same people that you will hear across your microphone. And I think being genuine in this podcast thing is one of the most important traits for people. Jeremy, it's always fun whenever we chop it up on here. And be sure to follow both of these individuals. You can find their Twitter. Why is this guy? Get out.
He's hilarious. Hey, he misspelled when you put that on the screen. It was the funniest thing I saw. He misspelled Patriots. He spelled Patriots. It's like, wait a minute, that's not even a word. What are you talking about?
He's from the UK, man. He's a UK Dolphins fan or something, man.
He says he's famous. That's hilarious.
Sardines. You think they sardines?
It's probably a troll. It's probably a fake account.
He will be famous after this show. He got so much love on here. Like, I'm put him up there again.
Patriots.
We have to embrace the trolls.
He's heavy UK.
Hey, everybody watching this show, if you want to find either of these two esteemed gentlemen, I appreciate both of you guys giving us your time, coming on the platform to chop it up on the Tailgate Show. You can find Drew and the Rockpile Report, their Twitter account, in the links below. You can also find Muki and his Twitter account in the links below. Also in the links below, you will find Colts Report Twitter, Instagram, and be sure to like our Facebook account. You can find us on Twitter at Cold Front Report and on Instagram at Cold Front Report _Bills News. Jeremy, it's always fun every time we come on this Saturday night tailgate. I think it's 2 weeks in a row now for you, right?
Yeah. 2 weeks in a row I came in. Schedule kind of line up where I can get out and do some fun things. Guy said he's from Florida. He must not be wearing a mask.
Well, that's obvious. Sorry, there's a lot of sardines and salt water there. You know what I mean? You don't even have a picture. It could be Tua. Is it Tua Tagovailoa? You know what I mean? Incognito.
Monte Tails missing girlfriend. They found her.
I got to get to Drew's basement, man, and have a damn drink for crying out loud. And we sit up here listening to Victor Bajnian. It's like you're a hockey player or something. Trying to talk football.
And
Florida Marlins, dude.
When I see in the comments here, Mike Smith saying, Drew, if they jump out to a lead, we're coming for you. Hey, you know what? If you don't throw your opinion out there if you don't expect to own it. At Rockpile Report, come at me. We'll talk about it. We'll chop it up.
Yeah, go Bears. Come on, John Blunt. Y'all acting up tonight.
Wow, a lot of bandwagon Bills watchers. I guess they need a real
Bears. Mitchell Trubisky. What Mitchell Trubisky going to do on Sunday? You better hope he don't boo-boo in the bed. You worry about talking about go Bears. Come on, man. Go find you a deep dish pizza somewhere and sit down. The Bears. Best thing I got smoking over there is Khalil Mack. Where he's from?
The Marsh.
Buffalo.
Guys, it's been an evening. We gotta stop fighting with the fans. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Past
Enjoy
John
the game
Blunt
tomorrow.
bedtime.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Ready to put somebody through a damn table.
Wash your hands.